Hey everyone, happy to have you with us on an all-new episode of the American Huddle alongside Andy Gresh. I'm 𝚑𝚎𝚎. Andy, we are heading into week 5 of the college football season. Time really flies when you're having fun.
Well, it does, and we're almost at full conference slate. I guess you could say full conference Voltron mode here. Next week, we really start to get into all of the great conference matchups, and I think we've learned a lot about a lot of teams here in the American in the first month. Some teams are surprised that they're down, but there's a couple of teams that are up that have now really gotten on the national radar.
Speaking of conference matchups, the American gets started in action on Thursday night, primetime ESPN, when Memphis hosts Navy. And this is a key West Division matchup, Andy. And when we watch both of these two teams play, we usually witness a battle. What are the keys to you for both sides?
Well, I think for Memphis, it's get out and score early and try to get Navy into a position to where they got to chase from behind, to where they maybe come out of their run game a little bit and have to throw it more. And conversely, I think on the Memphis end, I want to test the back end of that Navy defense. I'm going to try to throw the ball as much as I can early on, sort of get them thinking. I know that Mike Norvell likes to run the ball. I still think they'll do that. But if I'm Memphis, I'm coming out, I'm going to spread them out, I'm going to try to throw the ball a bunch early, get a big lead, and not sit on it, but sort of force Navy to kind of play left-handed.
All right, and for Memphis, important to note that star running back Patrick Taylor is not expected to play this Thursday against Navy. You can tune into that one at 8 p.m. Eastern on ESPN. All right, taking a look at Saturday, Andy, former Temple head coach Jeff Hollins, he makes his big return to Philadelphia as the head coach at Georgia Tech. How do you expect these returning Temple players to react to their former head coach returning home, so to speak?
Well, you know, it's interesting because Collins had a short stop over there, so I don't know the level of attachment. I know there were guys that were recruited by Jeff Collins, so maybe for some of those kids, there's going to be a real attachment level because they believed in him and that's why they went to Temple. So I think sometimes these situations can be overblown. If Collins had been there 8 years or something like that, then I could see a real attachment and a lot of people within that building at Temple football who would have been attached to Jeff Collins, but it's been pretty transient down there. So in my mind, I don't think it's a huge deal.
All right, well, when you look at this Temple team, 2 weeks ago, they defeated a top 25 team in Maryland. It was exciting. Temple fans were riding high, and then they hit the road to Buffalo last Saturday and suffered a tough loss on the road. Where is this Temple team at this point in the season, and more importantly, who are they?
That's a great question because they should and normally have been rooted in great special teams, and I think their special teams are good. I don't know if their special teams are great this year. And Haley, you and I have been doing this for a while, and how many times was it Temple turned a game over because of a punt return or a kick return or a block kick? They need some of that to get going again. I think it's a part of who they are, and quite honestly, a part of their good juju. They know they can make plays in the third phase of the game. So even I'm kind of scratching my head on who Temple is. Georgia Tech, they're going through a big transition, coming out of what is the Navy offense to what Jeff Collins is going to do. So to me, this is a very winnable game for Temple. That said, I just wish I had more confidence in them going into this winnable game.
All right, well, 2 first-year head coaches at their respective programs squaring off 3:30 p.m. Eastern on CBS Sports Network. A couple of conference matchups on the slate as well on Saturday. First up, SMU at USF. Andy, the Mustangs are 4-0 for the first time since 1984. They're getting off to a really good start, coming off that win over number 25 TCU last week. But conversely, for USF, it's probably not the start to the season they were hoping for. But here's the exciting thing. Once you get into conference play, 0-0. Fresh slate. How does that impact this game?
It allows the USF players to have a mental reset that, okay, here's our first one in the league. We get this one and maybe we can start to build. And conversely, if you're SMU, it's we're 4-0. We got a chance at a great season here. Let's make sure we handle our business in conference and continue to build what we've been building. I like SMU in this game, even though they are going on the road, because I think they can score. And they've been tested, whereas USF, when they have been tested, they haven't been able to rise to the occasion and sort of pass some of those tests. So I like SMU. I think Sonny Dykes is, he's really level jumped that program in a way that I wasn't sure he was going to be able to do to this point. But now they're sitting there at 4-0, and you've got to take them seriously.
Staying in the state of Florida, UCF will host UConn. The Knights coming off of their first loss first regular season loss, I should say, since 2016. How do you expect the Knights to bounce back against this Husky team?
Big, very big. I think they're going to be a little upset with the way they played. They didn't get off to a very good start. They thought maybe they had the game won, and then they got, snookered in the end. So I expect a big response from UCF. Look, this UConn team is just where they're at right now. They're just not very good. So if you're UCF, you're thinking this is the perfect opponent to be able to get right on. And I do think that UCF, it will be in the back of their minds, Haley, that we need to continue to show people that we're a really good football team. What happened last week, all right, it happened last week against another Power 6 opponent, but if they're, meaning UCF, if they're going to remain the top dog in this league and UConn is sort of pushed down to the bottom, I think in terms of the minds of these rubes who vote in the top 25, UCF putting up a good showing against UConn would go a long way to sort of righting the ding that they took last week in terms of the overall reputation.
Well, you can catch UCF and UConn. That's a 7 p.m. Eastern kick in Orlando on ESPN2. A few non-conference Conference USA matchups on the schedule as well on Saturday. Houston at North Texas. The big news, of course, out of Houston this week is quarterback 𝚃𝚑𝚎 and wide receiver Keith Corbin both announced that they'll be redshirting the remainder of the season. How much of a disruption is that for this Houston team heading into week 5?
I mean, it's massive because I think if you're one of the teammates in the locker room, hopefully you saw it coming. If you didn't, then there's the shock and awe. It's like losing a guy to injury. There's a lot of finality there in terms of 𝚃𝚑𝚎 is gone and he ain't coming back till next year if he comes back at all. So there's going to be those questions swirling around the program. Dana Holgorsen is going to have to get a new quarterback in there up and ready to go. I think Houston's in a tough spot. However, they're not playing a conference foe. So they get a week to be able to kind of hit that reset button, try to figure out who they're going to be moving forward, and maybe get a win against this North Texas squad, who I think is beatable for Houston, but they've got a lot of questions to answer in a short amount of time due to the Cougs.
All right, well, for Cincinnati, they will face off against Marshall. The Bearcats coming off of a bye. And Andy, this is the last game for Cincinnati before they head into conference play the rest of the way. If you're head coach Luke Fickell, what are you looking to get out of this last non-conference game other than a win?
I'm looking for my quarterback to be solid. I need to get Michael Warren running the football again, and I think they will do that. And defensively, let's just get back to who we are. Let's focus on the fundamentals, and let's make sure as much is buttoned up before we get into full-blown conference play. I like Cincinnati a lot. I think Cincy and UCF are the two best teams in the conference as we sit here right now at the end of September. Now, obviously, that's going to change as we move along. But for Cincinnati, to me, it's be good at skill, get back to basics on defense, and get ready for the league play.
Finally, ECU at ODU. The Pirates coming off of a home win over William and Mary. Andy, how does ECU continue building and look to pick up its first win on the road this year?
I think a lot of it, Haley, is really just getting integrated into Mike Houston's offense. And let's remember, too, Mike Houston had his father passed away. So there's been a little bit, I don't want to say topsy-turvy, maybe that's the wrong word, but there's been just a lot of stuff going on, other more than just the natural transition of dealing with coaches during game weeks. And now I think everything is kind of settled down at ECU. This is a good opponent for them. Now let's remember, ODU did go into Virginia Tech and pop them. So let's not think that this is just a rollover game for ECU. That said, I think it's one they're going to win. They need to continue to show toughness. And again, this is really a year in the lab for Mike Houston to experiment, figure out what he needs at ECU, and then go hit the recruiting trail and get it.
It's hard to believe we are approaching the end of September. And when you look back to this first month or what we've seen of it so far this season, what is your biggest takeaway from the league as a whole?
Two things. Number one, UCF is still really good at a very high level, and SMU has a real chance to end up in the conference championship game this year. I still like Cincinnati a lot. I know UCF lost to Pitt, but I don't think it's anywhere near the end of their season. They still go win an American Conference Championship and probably end up in a New Year's Six Bowl. But, the emergence of SMU is a very big deal, and it's great for the American, for SMU to be good.
Something certainly to keep an eye on as the season progresses. It's been an exciting first month so far. We hope you'll tune into all of the action this week starting on Thursday night. You can follow along on Twitter at American_FB or head over to our Facebook page for full highlights following each game. On behalf of Andy Gresh, I'm Haley Outen. Have a great weekend.